one of our good friends owns this incredible dog business. And one of the great things that I've learned from her, amongst other things, is how incredibly effective it is when you coach. Ooh, that's a little bright. When you coach or teach or lead animals, and it's not different for people, but you lead animals with commands that praise the action. They praise the doing. They don't praise the animal, they praise the action. And it's really, really important because it's a whole different energy to it. And if the animals get it, then obviously like the humans can get it. And so a good example would be if you're working with a dog and you're trying to get them to sit down. So it's like, sit down, like you bring your hand up, sit down. Guess what? And they sit down. You don't say good boy. You don't say good girl. You say good sit. That's a good sit. That's a clear command. That's a clear praise. That's very understandable. It doesn't. Now, the funny thing is, like, I don't know what's going on in the psychology of the dog. I don't think they're necessarily thinking like, oh, I'm a good dog or I'm a, whatever, because I said good dog, but it's understandable. The brain gets a memory peg basically in there that says, this was a good sit. I did this action well. I should feel good about this thing. I don't have to necessarily think that I'm a good person, that I'm a good Todd because I could sit down, but it's a good sit. So it's a clear command, and it's a clear outcome expected, and then clear praise. So it's the performance that was indicated or is trying to be elicited that got done, then gets recognized, and boom, you can check it off. The problem is this doesn't happen very often when you see young parents or young coaches or inexperienced or ignorant coaches or whatever. Like they don't know this. They haven't learned this. It sometimes can take a long time. Sometimes people go a whole lifetime, they don't realize this. But it's to praise and to command the action needed. And to not be acting sloppy, right? See how I said acting sloppy instead of saying being sloppy, right? I didn't say lazy. I said, okay, well, we need to do, coach the activity. What do you want them to do? What's the desired outcome? How do you get them there? That's coaching. That's what you need to do. You don't state how you think it is. You tell them what to do, or you're just poo-pooing on them, right? You're just making yourself feel better because you're not holding yourself accountable also for trying to get that action. Now, trust me, I understand it. It's not easy. And if it probably wasn't for my friend really like driving this home with me, I don't know how long it would have taken me to learn this. But since learning it, I now see it showing up in so many texts that I've read before about coaching. So much literature that I had been taking in. I was missing some of the key points. And that's the same thing as coaching. A lot of times when you're coaching somebody, they just haven't heard what you're saying, like in their words, or they just don't see what you're trying to show them, or they just don't feel what you're trying to get them to experience. Because we all learn in different ways. And I'm sorry, but that's the way that parenting and teaching and coaching is. You're going to have to break it down into the words, into the way that they are going to learn it, because that's also what we're there for. That's what we're there to do as a parent or as a coach or as a teacher. Like, it is your job to do that. Like, and whether you get paid or don't get paid, right? Whether you're a volunteer because that you chose that as a parent, like, it's up to you. Why not? Because we all want them to do better. We all want them to win, even if sometimes it comes from a selfish place where I want to feel good about myself because I taught them to do that or coached them to do that or parented them to do that, whatever. Or you feel like it's more about you and less about them. Not a great way to be, but like that's the way some people coach. It's the way some people teach. It's the way some people parent. And it's not always a bad thing as long as you're effective when you're doing the things that you're doing. But if you're coming from a negative place or a fearful place, it's more often than not that you're going to then infuse and enliven those characteristics in your people. And it's not pretty when that's what happens. The good news is it's never too late to start being a better parent. It's never too late to start being a better teacher, a better coach. Also, it's never too late to start cultivating and building and leaning into better relationships. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're teaching, leading, when you're parenting, it really does come down to the relationship. Do you want a good relationship? Do you want a deep relationship with this person? As a leader, as someone in their life, right? They may not have chosen you. They may have chosen their sport. They may have chosen the school that they went to. Sometimes in public school, they didn't choose the school that they went to. They may have chosen the class. They may not have chosen the class. They may have just said, well, this is a class I've got to take. Here's what they gave you. And you're just the name, literally the title that goes along with the other title of English or global studies or whatever it is. Like, that's just the way that it is. So then maybe they didn't choose you in that situation. But the bottom line is this. If you're trying to lead them, you lead through guiding them towards and pointing them towards the actions you desire. And then you have to reward and give feedback on those actions. And it has to be about the actions, not the person, right? Unless that's your field and all of a sudden you're in psychology, you don't know about that person. You only know and can comment on the action because that's your field. That's your focus. That's what you're there for. That's what you should be doing. It's not the place for you to walk through your own crap, unloading and pushing everything off on other people. That's not the place. It's not the place. Get a therapist. If you're not at that level where you can actually get a therapist, or you get a mentor, get somebody in your life that's going to honestly give you feedback that you'll listen to. This is where it's probably not going to be your parent. It's probably going to have to be somebody else. If you have a great relationship with and still respect your parent, and this is their lane or their zone of focus or area of expertise, great. That's not usually the way that it is. And we've seen so many situations where there's so phenomenal people that had kids that didn't take use of those resources because there was another relationship in there that was a bigger piece of the relationship, right? It was a father or mother first before it was a coach, a teacher, or, an expert. So, probably pick somebody else other than that. Maybe a former coach, a former teacher, or somebody you aspire to be like if they have time. These are great people to learn from because they've gone through your challenges. They've gone through the problems that you're going to be encountering and things like that. And they'll probably, if they don't coach the way that, like I said, that they're talking about the action, they're probably not somebody that you want there because they're probably more fear-driven than they are faith-driven. And although you can get so far with one of them, it's pretty toxic getting there. And usually the rest of everything else around that kind of falls apart if you're only fear-driven. And I know a lot of people love to hear the thing like, I hate losing more than I like winning. I don't know. I mean, that's great that they got to be that great, but that's a really toxic way to get to that level. There's a much more powerful way to get to that level. You can use that toxicity and fearful piece like at points where you need to, but guess what? They didn't use that all the time. I doubt that was what drove them all the time, because if that was the case, they would literally have nobody around them that even liked them. And for some of them, it sounds like maybe that's the case. This is probably not the type of person you want to coach, though. And that's very different coaching. That's coaching at an extremely, extremely high level at the tail end of somebody's career. For the rest of us, coaching the more bulk of somebody's career, you want people that other people want to be around, that gravitate towards that type of thing. And you want to cultivate that kind of situation or environment so that you can create the situations that help create even better people. That's the point. And I'm trying to sum this up in less than 10 minutes because I know this is usually a thing that just gets overlooked and people just forget this. But we say things all the time that they're low-hanging fruit. It's like the person who's being sarcastic all the time. And it's funny, but it's really not too funny. And it's not something you want to play over and over again. And that's what ends up happening with somebody's not coaching, teaching, or parenting in a way that's getting people into better actions consistently and getting them feeling better about their actions.